Hey, Mike, welcome to Crosswalk Talk. Thanks for joining me.
Michael, thank you so much for having me on.
We are talking to Mike Nawrocki, creator of the new animated series Dead Sea Squirrels. It's on the streaming service Minno beginning February the 14th. Of course, it's based on the book series that you wrote, Mike. Has guest appearances by just about everybody in the Christian world: Matthew West,
Yep.
Bart Millard, Ellie Holcomb, Phil Vischer, Duncan Phillips of Newsboys, Beth Moore. Of course,
Yep.
you are the co-creator of VeggieTales. That's how everybody got to know you in the first place.
That's
Mike,
right.
give us a preview of the Dead Sea Squirrels. I've seen some of it and I love it so far. What's the plot? What will folks watch?
Well, yeah, no. So the series centers around a 10-year-old boy named Michael who is on a summer break with his dad in Israel, and Michael's brought his best buddy Justin with him, and they kind of wander into a cave near the Dead Sea where his dad's on a dig, and they run across these two salt-encrusted, dehydrated squirrels. They have no idea how they got there. That's revealed later in the series. But Michael thinks they're super cool, wants to bring them back home as souvenirs, so he smuggles them in his backpack back home with him to Tennessee, sets them up on a windowsill so they don't stink up his room. That night it rains while he's sleeping. They rehydrate, desalinate, and reanimate. They come back to life, and it turns out they're an old Jewish couple, Merle and Pearl Squirrel, who lived during the first century, and they
Mhm.
witnessed the life and ministry of Jesus and the disciples. And so they've just been petrified for 2,000 years. And so they're fish out of water in the 21st century. And Michael and his friends, as they kind of experience things as 10-year-old fifth graders, Merle and Pearl have a lot to say to that based on, what they heard Jesus say, what they know about the writings of the Apostle Paul and so on. So that's sort of the basic setup of the story. But also, there's a bit of intrigue because there's a guy after them as well. So a guy from who's working
Oh,
for the collector of relics in Israel is after the squirrels, and so they're kind of after. So it's really fun. So each episode kind of has a kind of a value, like a biblical value that plays out over the course of each episode. But there's a larger story that happens over the course of the 13 episodes of them, trying to escape from, being recaptured. And the back half of the series actually takes place in modern day Israel. So we're kind of running around modern day Israel as well. So there's a lot of fun, a lot of intrigue, a lot of just great music as well. Each of the episodes has a flashback. When we flash back to the lesson portion of the show, that happens in music. So we'll go back to the first century and listen to a musical version of the Sermon on the Mount, sung by Matthew West, who is our singing Jesus, and Steve Taylor is our singing Apostle Paul, that type of thing. So it's just a lot of fun, and I can't wait for people to see it.
that is awesome. Of course, it's based on a book series
That's right.
that you were behind.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind the book, and what was your goal with that? And I ask that because often in Hollywood, the goal seems to be mostly to entertain. I'm sure
Yeah.
Hollywood would say that, but sometimes when I'm watching a program or something, it seems like that's the case out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm assuming your goals are multifaceted though when you're making something like this.
Right, absolutely. No, I think, for an animated series, it has to be entertaining, but the heart for me is just about teaching kids biblical lessons, and even going back to our tagline in VeggieTales, God made you special and He loves you very much. That relationship, that belief that there's a God who loves us, who made us, who wants a relationship with us. Way back in my VeggieTales days, a line that we drew in the sand very early on was to never depict Jesus as a vegetable. We were, irreverent in a lot of ways with VeggieTales, but we wanted to not cross that line. And I wanted to have a vehicle for a story that allowed for the telling of more New Testament stories, more telling about Jesus and his life and disciples. And so that was the initial impetus around the idea of the story. So when I left Big Idea DreamWorks in 2016, I started pitching the idea around as an animated series because that's what I knew. But a friend of mine, Dan Lynch, who was in the publishing industry, said, "Hey, have you ever considered this as an early reader series?" And I hadn't, but I thought that was a great idea. So I went away and read a bunch of, Captain Underpants and Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
I kind of just familiarized myself with the format. And then yeah, kind of did up a pitch around an early reader series, and he set me up with Tyndale, Linda Howard there to do a pitch, and they loved it, and I started, writing the book. So, so the books have been a really great way, to develop the storyline, the characters, the series, and then once I was about eight to 10 books in, that's when we raised money for the pilot, and along with Steve Taylor, who's producing the series with me. So that's sort of how it evolved. Started off okay because my background is animation, but then kind of shifted to books, and that's where we are now. And so now it's cool because we kind of have a read watch experience. So I think fans
Yeah.
of the books, and I've heard great things from kids, reluctant moms of reluctant readers saying, "Oh, my children are really enjoying these books. They don't really like to read, but they love reading these books." And so I think they're really going to enjoy kind of the dual experience.
And you have the opposite as well. You'll have viewers who discover the book series. So
Right,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
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 and
yeah.
when
That'll be
again,
cool.
but encouraging reading in that age group, which is basically the 6 to 10, 11, 12 age group, I think is great, and so I love that.
How many episodes are you gonna make? Do you know yet?
Well, so there are 13 episodes that are completely done in season one. So, and they reflect the storyline of books 1 through 12. So, basically every episode is one of the books. And so
Okay.
it's about a 23 to 27 each, 23 to 27 minutes is how each episode plays out. When later, the books at the end of the series get a little bit longer. And so, so books 11 and 12 are kind of spread across episodes 11, 12, 13, that type of thing. So so there's 13, but there's also room. I've signed a new book deal with Tyndale, so I'm working on a new series of books, and so hopefully that turns into a season 2 of animation.
That's awesome. You made this through I believe, a New Zealand studio, along with some talented students at Lipscomb,
Yes,
where you
yes,
teach, in
yes.
partnership with Wonder Project. Kind of, I don't even know if I got that right, but kind of summarize how this got made behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Steve Taylor, who I've collaborated with, and Steve Taylor's a legend in the Christian music industry, but he's also a filmmaker. And Steve founded the film program here at Lipscomb, which I joined back in 2017. I came back here to do my MFA, went through the MFA program, and now I teach here full time. So I came to Steve. I mentioned, I was 8 or 10 books in. They were selling well, gathering an audience. And we worked out a deal to raise enough money to make a pilot. The pilot turned out great. Then we used we used the pilot then to go fundraise basically for the rest of the series. So we got two big partners. The Chick-fil-A through the Good Name Foundation, Impact Foundation was a major donor, and then a great family out of Montana. Kind of they do kind of medical technology stuff, were our first investors, and so they invested enough money for us to produce the show. So we, in partnership, as you mentioned, with Muck Putty Animation out of New Zealand, along with a great animation program here at Lipscomb University in Nashville. Tony and Tom Bancroft are two legendary Disney animators, run the program here. And so what we've done, which is really exciting for us, is we've set up kind of a mini production based around each of the songs. So we do a flashback song every episode. So it turns out to be a great little mini production that students can work on. Advanced students like juniors and senior animators, we pay them to work on it. They get great real world production experience and IMDb credit down the line. So
Mm.
it's great. And so we've integrated the pipeline in with the Muck Putty pipeline out of New Zealand. So working together to produce the shows. And Muck Putty does 90% of the animation, because students have their classes they need to work on. So we give them as much as they can handle, but they're really getting great experience through the whole process. So we produced the show, and in the midst of that, we started talking with John Irwin at Wonder Project, who was working on his project House of David, and we're friends with him, and have known him for quite a while, and did a deal with them as their kind of their signature kids series coming out of the gate. And it's really cool to see kind of how I feel God has orchestrated this whole thing to get it to screen and get it to families. So we couldn't be more excited.
You, of course, are a filmmaker, but you're a teacher as well. You're wearing on video here. You're wearing a Lipscomb hoodie or pullover or something there. A nice looking shirt. What led you to want to teach at Lipscomb? What led you want to teach in the first place?
Well, so I mentioned I left Big Idea in 2016, and I met with Steve Taylor, who we had collaborated. Steve had written a couple songs for the feature films that we did for Jonah and Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. And I was just having coffee with him, and he said, "Hey, Mike, have you ever thought about teaching?" And interestingly, I kind of had, but I kind of felt ill-equipped for it because my undergrad was not in the arts. I was a biology and history double major, and so, but I had spent my career in animation in the arts, and it's like, okay, well, I've done this, but I don't know really how to go about teaching. And so I enrolled in the MFA program and took a lot of notes through the MFA program. It's like, okay, I see how you're teaching this, so maybe how this is how I should be teaching it. My kids also were kind of at that college age, so I just felt like it was a time in my life in my career where it would be a great opportunity to give back and just say, okay, I'm at that place now where I can, still keep doing stuff, but also train up that next generation of storytellers and artists. And so I love the program here at Lipscomb, and it's a growing program both in film and animation, and it's just been great. So it's been a stretch for me. I felt like I've become a better storyteller, having learning how to teach it as well. So I felt like I've been growing and I've been helping students. So it's just a dream for me.
I think your fans would be mad at me if I didn't ask you about how you and Phil Vischer met, and kind of what led to the launch of VeggieTales. Give me a brief summary of how that came about years and years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So I got to go all the way back to '84. So,
Hmm.
and even a little bit before that, I was a theater kid, and I tell the story of the taller and taller I got. I'm about 6'5", but the taller and taller I got, the less and less comfortable I felt on stage, and I felt more drawn to behind the scenes, and so I got really into puppetry, which was something like Jim Henson and the Muppets were huge when I was growing up, and went to a denominational Bible college of the denomination that I was a member of, the Christian Missionary Alliance, and that's where I met Phil Vischer, who was kind of cut from the same cloth as me. He was also into puppets. We started writing and performing puppets together, roaming around the Minnesota countryside, scaring the Baptists, as we said, as we would say, with our puppets, with these really weird puppet shows. He had a lot of the same influences that I had comedically, Mel Brooks and Monty Python and all that. So we kind of incorporated all that into our puppetry. So we, got to be really good friends. We ended up in Chicago. He wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a doctor. So I went to University of Illinois Chicago to do undergrad pre-med. But I ended up landing a job where he was working as a nighttime videotape duplicator. So it was a graveyard shift VHS duplicator, but I got to, learn a little bit more of the production process, and we started making films together while I was going through school. And then we came up with the idea of VeggieTales as, this new art form of computer animation was emerging, and 3D computer animation, and also nonlinear editing. All of that stuff was just kind of coming online. And so kind of transplanting what we did in our puppeting days to, to animation with really simple characters that we needed at the time, because the technology was so limited at the time. So we just needed characters with no limbs, no hair, and no clothes. And so that's necessity was the mother of invention for VeggieTales at that point.
How did you guys decide who was going to voice which character? You, of course, are Larry the Cucumber. How did you guys make that decision?
I think it was based kind of off of our own personalities. Phil was a little bit more of the serious teacherly type, and I was just more of the airheaded goofball. And so kind of, that's kind of the look that they had. Larry was, sort of a little more lighthearted, one-toothed cucumber who could kind of go off on tangents, and Bob was like, he was a man, he had the mission from God, so he was a man on a mission. And so we kind of drew on our own personality kind of dynamics, to I'm very much the extroverted part of me is very much like Larry. I'm more of an introvert if you meet me in person, and then there's a lot of Bob the Tomato and Phil. So that's, kind of, we drew on our own personalities for that.
Is your voice heard in Dead Sea Squirrels?
Yeah, so I am Merle Squirrel. So I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm the lead squirrel, and yeah, so it's it's not doesn't sound like Larry at all. It's got its own voice to it. You wouldn't recognize it until you've heard it for a while. But yeah, but I love we have a couple of VeggieTales cameos in the show that I think
Okay.
fans will appreciate. In fact, Phil came in as a guest voice. There's two Tennessee squirrels that Merle and Pearl meet when they come to Tennessee. Actually, there's three Tennessee squirrels. There's Bob and Larry and Mary Squirrel, and so it was really fun. We kind of changed it up a little bit. I'm Bob Squirrel. I do my best Bob the Tomato impersonation, and Phil is Larry Squirrel, and he does his best Larry impersonation for that. And of course, Beth Moore is Mary Squirrel. So
Oh,
yeah, so that's fun.
that is awesome. In the final moments here, what do you want parents to know about this? What's your final pitch to families who are watching right now?
I hope folks check it out. Check it out on Minno. There's I know they're going to be offering trial memberships, for you to get on and see the show. It's a really fun show. It's got a lot of humor, a lot of great music, a lot of heart. But more than anything else, it teaches kids about Jesus, his life, his ministry, and there's going to be a lot of just great stuff for kids to carry forward with them. I'm teaching now for kids who a lot of my students grew up on VeggieTales, and I see the impact that that's had on their lives and on their worldview, and that ultimately that's, I think, the power that story can have, and what I'm hoping this show will do for kids.
Yeah, Minno is an incredible streaming service. For those who don't know, it's a streaming service for kids with
Yeah.
kid friendly content. Nothing bad on there. No rated R stuff. It's all kid friendly. Right. So check it out, Minno.
Yeah.
Our guest has been Mike Nawrocki, creator of the new animated series Dead Sea Squirrels. It launches on Minno February the 14th. Mike, thanks so much.
Michael, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.